everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Renegades trilogy by Marissa Meyer. I have been meaning to read this series for the longest period of time. I had Renegades on my shelf for I think over like a whole year or something. I picked it up sometime a while ago in our bookshop, and I've been meaning to read it ever since, but I don't know, I just never got round to it, even though I loved the Lunar Chronicles series, and the Lunar Chronicles series is one of my favorite series of all time. I don't know why I didn't pick this up sooner, but I am here to review the series for you guys today and share with you guys some of my thoughts that I had while reading this series. So as a forewarning, this video is going to contain spoilers for all three books. So if you haven't read the series yet, or if you don't want to get spoiled or anything, then I would suggest that you don't watch this video. But I'm just going to give you guys a quick synopsis of what the series is about, a non-spoilery synopsis so that you guys can go decide whether you want to read it. This series follows two people living in Gatlin City. Gatlin City is, I guess, I would consider like a futuristic sort of, not dystopian, but just like a futuristic city where people have superpowers. The people who have superpowers call themselves prodigies. These superpowers can range from anything from indestructibleness to putting people to sleep with just one touch, which is what one of our protagonists has as a superpower. So this city recently went through a war between the anarchists and the renegades. The anarchists were basically led by this man called Ace Anarchy, who basically freed, I can't really say freed, but kind of like led the prodigies to be accepted in the society, because previously they were not accepted in the society. But he committed a couple of, I guess, evil crimes, and he was defeated by the renegades, who were the people or the superheroes who formed to battle Ace Anarchy and the anarchists, who they thought were villains. And basically the renegades sort of became like the leaders of the city. They have like a council. They are the ones who take care of crime in the city. They are the ones, that you call if you have a problem or whatever. And this book basically follows two main characters. Nova, I kind of forgot her surname, but Nova and Adrian Everhart. Nova is part of the anarchists, or the villains. Ace Anarchy was her uncle, and her parents, they were killed, and she has reasons to hate the renegades and to have like a sort of thirst for vengeance. Adrian, on the other hand, is a renegade. He is basically a superhero that works for the renegades. He is the adopted son of Hugh and Simon, who are two superheroes who are on the renegades council. But basically Nova is trying to get her vengeance on the renegades for her own personal reasons, and as she gets closer to getting this revenge, she also meets Adrian, and these two worlds collide. So my personal opinion of the series is that the series is really, really great. I have a lot of reasons why I like this series. I actually didn't know very much about the plot when I picked this book up. I actually picked this book up because it was a Marissa Meyer book. So I was pleasantly surprised that I really, really enjoyed this book. I think it took me maybe like a tiny bit longer than the Lunar Chronicles to actually like get into it, but once I did really enjoy the series very much. So now I'm going to be getting to my review of the series. So if you haven't read the Renegades trilogy, or if you don't want to get spoiled, then I suggest that you read the series first and then come back and then you can watch this video. I have a couple of things to talk about. I'm not going to talk about the entirety of the plot of the series because I just don't want to make this video like super long. I just want to like mention a couple of things that I really, really enjoyed about this series, and thoughts that I had while reading it. So number one is that I really, really loved Nova and Adrian's relationship. I thought their relationship was really, really sweet. It's one of those relationships that you just sort of like, you have to ship, because it's interesting. They both have really different backgrounds and, histories and opinions, but there's also like a lot of secrecy. So when Nova joins the Renegades, she obviously can't reveal that she is actually Nightmare, and that Adrian is actually the Sentinel, who is a, sort of superhero that he created himself. I was honestly so worried that once their identities were going to be revealed to one another, that they eventually then wouldn't like each other anymore, but luckily that didn't happen, and it wasn't tragic, and they still ended up being in love, which is great. The next thing that I really, really loved about this series is that the superpowers of the villains were just super original and really creative, and honestly not like what I really expected from superheroes. So the kind of powers that I'm sort sort of thinking of are, for example, Dana, who can turn into, you know, a swarm of butterflies, or Ruby, who, you know, makes blood crystals from the blood that, you know, comes out of her wounds. I also really loved the idea of Adrian having the power to just like draw anything to life. I didn't really know like how that superpower could really be used in a fight or something, but I thought it was really cool how, you know, Adrian just like was able to just like draw different weapons or like a bomb or something, and I thought that was really, really cool. And the next thing that I really, really loved about this series is the LGBT representation. I really loved that Adrian was the adoptive son of Hugh and Simon, or Captain Chromium and the Dread Warden. You don't really, or at least not in like the books that I've read so far, unfortunately, I haven't seen a lot of books where LGBT couples had like adoptive children. So I thought that was really cool that Adrian, like one of the main characters, was just like, was the adoptive son of a gay couple. Nevertheless, a gay couple of two superhero adult men who were like on the Renegade Council and who were like ruling the city together. I thought that was really, really awesome. The next thing that I really loved about this series was the historical background of the series. Most of the time when you're reading a YA novel or even a YA series, like sometimes the story will have somewhat of a history that happened like before the beginning of the first book. Maybe something happened in the past, or, you know, like a war went down, or I don't know, whatever. But I honestly feel like with this series, with Renegades, you have this conflict between the Renegades and the Anarchists that really shape not just like the actual plot of the books quite sort of thickly, but also really, really shape Nova as a person and her, you know, goal of like getting her vengeance on the Renegades. This is something that I've personally never seen before. I feel like the history was also really well explained. At first I was like just a tiny bit confused about it. When I first read the prologue of the first book, I thought it was interesting that this conflict is something that, you know, continued on throughout the series, and it's something that kind of like almost like made the reader herself also have to choose a side, because while I was reading it, at first I was obviously very drawn to the Renegades, and I thought that they were the good guys and that they were the ones who knew, you know, what to do and, you know, what things should happen in the world. But the more that you read and the more that you learn about Nova and Ace and the villains like Leroy and Honeybee, you kind of just start to understand that there maybe isn't such a black and white theme going on as you, I guess, would want the world to be. And I always really love seeing that in series. I do love, you know, defeating a good villain and calling evil what it is, but I do very much enjoy just the sort of like realistic representation of villains in the series. I don't think that the world is black and white. I don't think our world is black and white, and I always think it's great to see a novel, you know, sort of like also demonstrating that even villains can have good motives and that even heroes can screw up and make mistakes. So that brings me to another point that I really liked about this series, which was this conflict between the villains and the heroes. As I just, you know, talked about, I thought it was interesting to see this like dynamic between the two groups. The one group that was just super focused on vengeance, and, you know, the Renegades, who were kind of all like high and mighty, you know, they might have had better motives than the Anarchists, but eventually they still tread into some really bad shit, you know, creating Agent N, which is something that, like, I'm not sure how I feel about either. I personally felt just as confused about what I thought about Agent N as, you know, maybe the people who are also learning about Agent N in the series. I understand why it was developed, but I also think that it's a weapon that is just really dangerous as well, and could potentially really screw up some lives, as we saw in the end. Then the next thing that I really loved about the series were the characters. Most of all, Max Everhart. Bless my soul, this boy must be protected at all costs. I thought he was adorable. I thought his power was really interesting, and I really enjoyed seeing his power also develop throughout the series, or not develop, but like it was eventually also used like as a plot point. And I thought that it was also really interesting how Agent N was eventually developed from his powers, and sort of see that play out. It was fantastic the way that he was eventually the one person who basically sacrificed himself for the greater good, or for the good of Gatlin City. At the end, I honestly thought that that Marissa Meyer was gonna kill Max off because of the thing that happens like when he has all this power in him and then he like releases it. I thought it was gonna like kill him or something. I would have gone on a fucking rampage if Max would have died. So I'm really, really glad that he is safe. It's obviously a tiny bit sad to think that like he's the one person who is left without, you know, superpowers, but I guess in the end he's probably happier that way, you know, having spent all of his previous life having to like stay in his quarantine and not being able to be with his dads. So I'm sure that he is very, very happy. But now we gotta talk about the epilogue. When I was reading the epilogue for the first time, I genuinely couldn't believe my eyes about what I was reading. I had to like go and like reread. I think I reread like half of the epilogue again because I was so confused about what was going on. And then it just hit me. Magpie is Evie. I honestly did not like Magpie in the series. I genuinely thought she was a real bitch. She was kind of helpful like sometimes, but as like a whole, I really didn't like her. I thought she was really a nuisance and just annoying people for no reason and things like that. And so like I was just really fucking shocked to learn that she was actually Nova's long lost sister. I think it is a great reveal. I think that the fact that Magpie is Evie is wonderful because it honestly makes you reconsider like the entire series. It honestly makes you want to like reread the whole series again and like just focus on those scenes with Magpie and Nova and see if there's anything that you can pick up on. Basically, what I did when I read that epilogue was like I immediately Googled to see whether there was a fourth book because I genuinely could not believe that Marissa Meyer was gonna leave us hanging on that epilogue. I don't know if you guys like have any information, but from what I know, there's no new book planned, there's no novella planned that I know of. So I'm honestly like I think this is really, really great, and it's almost like bittersweet the way that this ending, you know, went down, that we don't really know what happens between Evie and Nova. It honestly just like breaks my heart so much to think that like this is never gonna be resolved, like Nova and Evie are never gonna find out about each other if there isn't a new book or a new novella or anything like that. To be honest, there's a part of me that sort of feels like even if there was maybe a short story that Marissa would bring out sometime about Magpie and Nova meeting each other, I kind of feel like it would just be a bit anticlimactic. I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like this is maybe a reveal that should take place in like an actual novel and not just in a short story, because short stories are technically, I guess, stories that you don't necessarily need to read to get like the full picture of the story. But that was just like a huge shocker for me, and it was honestly the biggest plot twist of all time. And like really, really kudos to Marissa Meyer for putting that in there at the end. I am really interested to see what is going to happen. I don't know what she's gonna do with this information. I don't know what we're gonna do with this information. I guess the thing that can come from me at the end of the day is knowing that even if she doesn't write another book, we at least have fan fiction. And then there's one more thing that I want to talk about. The last thing that I want to talk about is the reveal that Phobia is actually Adrian's creation. I was also so shocked to learn that. Obviously it's not as big a reveal as Magpie being Nova's sister, but I feel like that was also just super tragic to think that Adrian created the monster that then eventually killed his mom and probably countless other people. That was a super heartbreaking moment for me. And I also felt like it was a very interesting way to introduce Phobia's backstory, because throughout the series you always hear like, oh, we don't know where he came from, you know, he just appeared. And I kind of felt like that was just part of his character. I didn't think that that was going to be sort of like elaborated on at all. So I was also just really shocked to find out that was like just a foreshadowing for the fact that Adrian literally like popped him into existence. And the fact that like Adrian like sacrificed his own powers just to kill Phobia was really, really powerful. And I was also just really shook because I honestly at that point I didn't think that people were gonna get their powers back anymore. I genuinely felt that Adrian and everyone else who also had lost their powers because of Agent N were just never gonna get their powers back. And I thought that in the end we were gonna be left with a Gatlin City that had no superheroes at all. I felt like that was also just a really momentous moment. And Adrian, oh, sweet Adrian, just being super selfless again. And oh, Adrian, I'm so happy he got his powers back. So overall, I really enjoyed the Renegades trilogy. I thought that it was really well written. I just love Marissa Meyer's work. I mean, to be fair, I think she's only written the Lunar Chronicles and Renegades, but I just feel like her worlds are so captivating and are super interesting, and I feel like the characters are always also super nuanced and have a lot of depth to them, quite a lot of backstory as well. So I am really interested to see what other books she brings out. I really enjoyed the series very much. I don't think it's as good as the Lunar Chronicles series, but I definitely think the series is super amazing, and I was really happy to read it. And like I said before, I'm really interested to see what Marissa Meyer now is going to bring to the table. This is going to be the end of my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I hope that you guys are having a great day, night, morning, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you guys soon.